listening to the Pharmacist Answers podcast. I'm Cynthia, the pharmacist, and today you'll get your questions answered and your curiosity cured. Today I have a special interview for you. I got to spend some time a few months ago with Rachel Mayo. Rachel wears many hats, and one of those hats is labeled Type 1 Diabetic. Rachel's been dealing with diabetes for 10 years, and today she shares the ins and outs of how it affects her life and her hopes and dreams for the future. So tell me what pre-diabetes Rachel was like.
Pre-diabetes Rachel is very much like diabetes Rachel, except I didn't have to worry so much about everything, how everything would affect my blood sugar. So before, when I would go out and run, I would go out and run. But now when I go out and run, I check my blood sugar before to make sure it's okay to run. I check my blood sugar after. I have to adjust my insulin after. I have to make sure that I drink something with protein in it after, or else my blood sugar will drop. So it's just stuff like that. I worry more about the effects of what I do.
So you've been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes for 10 years.
10 years and some change.
Okay. So you were 18, 19?
I was 18.
What did you first start experiencing when diabetes started taking effect and you're like, I'm not normal, I don't feel normal, something's not right?
Yeah, I was drinking probably 3 bottles of water every night before I went to bed. So that was not normal. And of course, because of that, I would be up all night going to the bathroom. But at the same time, it was like the last week or so of my freshman year of college. I didn't have anything that resembled a normal schedule. So I thought, well, maybe my hormones are just out of whack, or maybe it's because it's my schedule. But it was the extreme thirst right before bed, and then I would come home from like one class and take like a 3-hour nap, which is just not normal for an 18-year-old, especially me. So that's when I decided to get checked out.
Okay, so realized everything wasn't normal and decided to get checked out by the doctor. So how many other things did they test you for before they narrowed down on diabetes?
Well, my mom was working for a family doctor at the time, so he just said to come in after I got done with my finals. So literally went from school to the doctor, and it was not anywhere on their radar. He asked me general questions, and he said, yeah, it's probably just, your hormones are kind of out of whack or whatever. But then the nurse said, well, let me just test your blood sugar real quick. And I hadn't eaten in about 12 hours, and my blood sugar was 272.
Whoa.
And so she said, okay, let me try a different glucometer. So she got a different glucometer. It was the same. And then she got a third glucometer, and it was the same. They immediately referred me to an endocrinologist, and I went at 7:15 the next morning.
Oh, wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
we went from finishing the semester at school to the doctor to a specialist in less than 24 hours.
Yes, basically, yeah. It was a whirlwind.
Okay, so then at the endocrinologist, so we're at the specialist, what did they do for you or to you?
They drew my blood. We got stuck in a waiting room for a little while, and then the endocrinologist came in and said, well, you got diabetes, and you've had it for 3 months. And I was like, I'm okay. But at that point, I was still in my honeymoon phase. So I was still producing a little bit of insulin. Actually, whenever I was first diagnosed, they taught me how to give a shot right then, right there. They put me on my regimen. And just for comparison's sake, when I was first diagnosed, I was taking 4 units of long-lasting insulin a day. That's it. If my blood sugar was high at meal times, then I took fast-acting insulin, but it might have been 1 unit or a half a unit. Right now, on my insulin pump gives me 1 unit per hour of fast-acting insulin. So that's automatically 24 units of insulin per day that I get, plus what I take when I eat. So I went from basically like maybe 6 or 7 units per day total to now, it might be 50 or 60 units per day.
Right. Okay. Did they explain to you how they knew that you had had diabetes for 3 months? Or did you just say, okay, you're the doctor?
I pretty much said, okay, you're the doctor. But with the A1C test, it gives you your average blood sugar for 3 months. I don't know how they came up with that, I guess because it looked like an average of, hey, 3 months. She's definitely had this for the 3 months that we're going back and testing.
Yeah.
So.
The A1C test measures how much glucose bonds to your red blood cells.
Yeah.
And your red blood cells have a lifespan of 120 days, which would be 4 months. When they check the A1C, it usually comes back as a percentage, right? That's usually the number that you see. For a typical non-diabetic human, A1C is going to be between 6 and 7. For someone who has diabetes and is uncontrolled, you can get an A1C like 14, 15, 16. They tell you your goal is less than 7.
Yes.
If you can get less than 7, then you know that you're controlling your blood sugar enough that the sugar is not just latching on to your red blood cells. So out of the 4 months that the red blood cells live, if 3 of those months it was being brutally assaulted by all the sugar because your insulin wasn't able to manage it, then they are able to calculate that number. So that's a number that even a lot of diabetics don't really understand. They just know that they have to go and get their blood drawn, and they get this number, and they tell you, okay, your number's good, or, oh, no, your number's not good.
Yes.
And that's usually how that works. Was there any kind of education for you or for your family now to support you that they obviously taught you, like, here's how you give a shot because you got to give shots now because give shots or die kind of thing. But was there any kind of educational support, emotional support for you or your family to be able to walk forward from that?
Not as much as you would think. I was 18 when I was diagnosed as an adult. They made me an appointment with a nutritionist. But that was really it. I kind of sought out community after that. I got involved with JDRF. But unfortunately for adults, it's not like you're a kid and you're diagnosed. They have a whole system for a family to kind of go through and walk through. But when you're an adult, it's kind of like, well, here's a nutritionist and you can kind of figure this out on your own, which is kind of, I don't know, not maybe fair isn't the right word, but it is just as hard for an adult and an adult's family to walk through it as it is for a kid, I would think.
Yeah.
Although with children, they can't understand as well.
Right. And for kids, sometimes it's easier to get into a new routine faster.
Yes.
So it's like, hey, this is going to be your new routine for the rest of your life, and they're able to kind of like cope and do it. Where for adults, it's kind of like you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So it's like, I'm so used to living my life this other way, and now you tell me I have to do something different. Like, what do you expect me to do?
Yeah, it is a hard adjustment. I was lucky that I was actually grateful that I was diagnosed like right at the end of my freshman year, because then I had this summer to adjust before going back to college. Although, 3 months, in hindsight, I mean, you look back, that's not a lot of time to adjust to a completely new lifestyle and like trying to figure out the way your body works now.
Right. Just as an interesting way to think about it, if you did a SWOT analysis of your life with diabetes now, what would you say the strengths are that diabetes gives you?
I mean, you grow up, your parents say you can do anything, you can put your mind to it, blah, 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 whatever. But I really feel like I can, because I do everything else that a normal or a non-diabetic person does. And that feels good. I can do everything and manage a chronic illness. So it just gives me, like, I don't know how to describe it. I feel, maybe empowered isn't the right word, but it does give me just a little more strength to say, you know what, you can do everything all these other people are doing, and you're managing chronic illness. Like, you're doing a good job, Rachel. Keep it up. It's kind of like my own personal cheerleader, too.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. What would be the weaknesses?
It is hard. I mean, there are some times when I do just need to stop and rest. And I don't like to do that because I feel like diabetes is getting the best of me at that point in time. when really, I mean, everyone has something where they need to rest, where they need to stop. But I don't like to feel defeated by diabetes, and so sometimes when I have to cancel plans, or when I'm just not having a good week, like if my blood sugar is just crazy that week and I'm just in the bed when I get home every day, I feel bad. I feel like I should not be in that position. But I mean, it's just the nature of the disease. Like, you have to, but I don't like that.
Yeah. Oh, sure. So what opportunities do you feel that you've gained now that you are living with diabetes that you might not have had if you were like the rest of us without diabetes?
I have met so many amazing people. Getting involved with the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation has been fantastic. I get the opportunity to meet people, other people with diabetes. I get the opportunity to educate people about diabetes. It's a great way to help others. For example, my husband, we were at Walmart one day and we saw a coworker of his and her daughter. She's 4. She has type 1 diabetes. She was so excited to meet a quote-unquote grown-up, with diabetes, and her mom sent me a Facebook message after I talked to her, and she said, "My daughter loves you." She says, "Look, Mom, she's just like me, and she's so pretty."
Aww.
And I also got the chance to kind of invite them into the type 1 community because she didn't know anything. She didn't know anyone with diabetes. She had no kind of support. So I guess just meeting people, educating people, and being able to help others that have the disease is the main opportunity I've gained.
Okay. What aspect of your life do you feel is threatened by diabetes?
The aspect of my life I feel that's threatened by diabetes is just my life in general. I mean, a diabetic can live a normal, long life, but it's really hard. It's just really hard to do that. It's going to be really hard when we have kids and I get pregnant. It's going to be hard for my body to manage that. It's going to be hard for my baby to manage that. My whole life is threatened by it.
Yeah, so lots of things, like a lot of future things. Like when it's just you,
things.
I can manage me, but now
Yes.
I'm managing. When you have a family, it's like managing me so I can be here for everyone else, and then making sure that I manage me so I can also manage them appropriately, because at least until they're a certain age, they need managing.
Exactly. So, they're not self-sufficient right off the bat.
Right. Yeah. What is your biggest hope for the future with JDRF?
My biggest hope for the future is that there's a cure in my lifetime. That is my biggest hope. My biggest want is that I just want there to be a cure for my kids' generation. I can handle and accept the fact that I'll deal with diabetes the rest of my life. It's been 10 years. I've managed it. It's fine. It's whatever. I've never been in denial. What I don't think I can accept is if I have a child with diabetes and they have to live with it for the rest of their lives. That just doesn't need to happen.
Yeah.
So that I hope that we have a cure in my lifetime. I really, really want a cure for my kids' generation.
Okay. If you had no constraint on money or time or resources, what would you do to help that happen?
I would get super involved with JDRF. I mean, I would spend all my time educating people about diabetes. A lot of people, when they think diabetes, they think their grandma that lost a foot or a leg or something because their blood sugar was out of control. But that's not type 1 at all.
Right.
So I would spend just all my time educating people, trying to get them to understand what we go through on a daily basis, and then I really think that they'd be more inclined to donate to JDRF and help with all the projects that are currently going on, like the artificial pancreas. So,
yeah, that was some exciting news.
Yes.
Talk about that for a second.
So the artificial pancreas is basically a closed-loop system where, like right now I wear an insulin pump, and I have a continuous glucose monitor that I'm currently not wearing because it's very expensive for the supplies.
Yeah.
But what happens is my CGM checks my blood sugar, and then I can enter my blood sugar into my insulin pump, and it'll tell me how much insulin I need. And I'll give it the carbs I'm going to eat. I mean, it's literally called the bolus wizard. I don't have to do any math. The artificial pancreas does it all. I don't have to do anything. It monitors my blood sugar. It will give me the appropriate insulin. It's predictive, so if I'm exercising, it'll say, oh, Rachel's exercising. We're going to need to tone it back a little bit. I literally don't have to touch anything. It just does it for me.
Yeah, and so probably what people don't realize is that there's actually some fancy math that doctors can do and that they program into your insulin pump that says this, based on your body, this many carbs will require this many units of insulin. And so that's how the doctors can calculate what you need. That's how they program the insulin pumps to be able to do that for you. So then, like you said, it's the wizard. You just put in the numbers that you're told to calculate and enter, and then all of the math brain inside the machine does the hard part for you. So it does make it as much like a natural pancreas as they possibly can, so you don't have to do all the work.
Right.
Do you see yourself as a diabetic, or do you see yourself as a person with diabetes?
I totally see myself as a person with diabetes. You know, I say, yeah, I'm diabetic or whatever, but that's not my mindset. Diabetes is not the first part of Rachel. It's a part of me, absolutely. It's nothing that completely defines me or where I'm going.
Right. And that's what I seem to find when I talk to patients. They're like, diabetes isn't my identity.
Exactly.
It's something that I deal with on a daily basis, but that it doesn't make me who I am. It doesn't change who I am, because just like you said, pre-diabetes Rachel was just like diabetes Rachel, except for the fact that now diabetes Rachel has to concentrate on all of these other things that weren't ever in your brain before. So what would be your takeaway message for people with type 1 diabetes?
I would say to just always stay positive, which is kind of my motto for everything, but especially with diabetes, because it's really easy. It's so easy to just get down. I mean, I'm a positive person. I'm a naturally positive person, and I know how down I can get with diabetes. But if you stay positive, it really helps. What also helps is having a strong community. I mean, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have my little group of diabetic friends to just be able to text or call when I'm having a bad day and them know exactly what I'm going through that day. I can come home and I can complain to my husband, and I do, and he listens and he's there for me and he is a wonderful support. But he doesn't know exactly physically what I feel, mentally what I feel. So he helps to the best of his ability. And it's wonderful. But it's so good to have a group of people to support you. I mean, even like today with the JDRF walk, none of my friends that came today were type 1, but they all support me and they're all my friends, and it just feels so good to have that encouragement there. I mean, that really is what gets me through the days, is having community and staying positive about it.
Okay. And what would be your takeaway for everyone else that may or may not know someone with type 1 diabetes?
I would just tell them to just be understanding. Diabetes is an invisible illness. They probably know someone with type 1 diabetes. Even if they don't know it. I have a tattoo on my arm. It says type 1 diabetic, so people automatically know. But not a lot of people do. It's an invisible illness. It is very real. There's a very real battle going on inside my body every single day, and so I would just tell them to, be understanding, give a little grace to some people, because type 1 diabetes isn't the only invisible illness. There's a ton of them. You never know what's going on in someone's body.
Right.
So it's just nice to come across people that are gracious.
Okay. And last question. What would you want to tell medical professionals to help them help their type 1 diabetes patients better?
I'm actually really lucky with my endocrinologist. He's very understanding. he's a really good doctor. The ones that I've heard, I mean, I've heard terrible, terrible horror stories from people that their medical professionals just don't listen to them. They're not saying, this is what's going on in my body. I would say to just really listen to the patient. Yes, you're a medical professional. I understand you went through years and years of schooling to be able to do what you are doing, but I've been living with my body for as long as I've been alive. So I know what's going on. So I would just say to just listen more, listen better, and really hear the patient, what they're saying, and try to understand what they're feeling and where they're coming from.
Yeah, and that's part of why I do what I do, because it's hard to communicate something if you don't have the language to explain what you're talking about. So to be able to help the normal population have the words and have the understanding of what they're trying to explain, so then when they talk to a medical professional, they can communicate it in words and language that the medical professional is going to understand. But also helping medical professionals to remember how to talk plain English. Because we go through textbooks and we take tests and we do all of these things to prove that we know all this stuff. And you just end up in this other world of medical language, and those words kind of become part of your daily habit. So then if you say it to somebody outside of your little medical bubble, they're not going to know what you're talking about. So to be able to make that connection in the middle of patients being able to explain clearly what they want, what they feel, what they don't want when it comes to their treatment, and how they are feeling about this disease that they just learned that they had, especially when you're diagnosed with something as an adult. Like, adults' brains just don't cope with that as easily. But then the professionals being able to clearly understand, have the compassion, have the empathy, and then again have the plain language to communicate that understanding, but then communicate and help them make it to the next step. I love you, Rachel. Thanks for letting me do this.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Pharmacist Answers podcast. The pharmacy is now closed. You can post your questions and comments on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/pharmanswerspod. Or you can email the show at pharmacistanswershere@gmail.com. You can tweet me or message me on Twitter @SinHendrix. You can find the show notes at pharmacistanswershere.wordpress.com. Pharmacist Answers broadcasts live on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 9:02 a.m. Eastern Time on the Periscope app. You can follow me @SinHendrix or view in your web browser at periscope.tv/SinHendrix. See you next time on the Pharmacist Answers podcast.